Lately, I've been thinking about the endurance of certain phrases in the English language. The kind of words that travel across centuries and cultures, yet still manage to hold our attention. One of them is this: the pot calling the kettle black. Its earliest trace can be found as far back as 1546 in John Haywood's Proverbs, where he wrote, "The pot calls the kettle black, but both are black at length." Even then, the imagery was clear. Two objects, both darkened by fire, pointing at each other in accusation. The saying resurfaced in Cervantes' Don Quixote in 1620, translated into English by Thomas Shelton. And by the late 17th century, it was firmly part of the English language, appearing even in the writings of William Penn, who cautioned, "For the pot to call the kettle black." But its story doesn't start there. In fact, you can go further back and you'll find Aesop's fables, where a snake is scolding a crab for walking crooked, even though both are shaped the same. You see, humanity, it seems, has always found ways to laugh at or lament the sight of one flawed vessel mocking another. And even kitchen humor kept it alive with James Howell in 1659 when he spoke of the frying pan versus the kettle. Centuries on, the soot and the smoke of open fire cooking gave us a metaphor that refuses to die. And perhaps it endures because hypocrisy endures. Because centuries later, we still live in a world where institutions accuse each other of the very false they embody, where leaders condemn in others the same failings that shadow their own record. The pot and the kettle may have been iron once, blackened by soot. Today, they're dressed in suits, seated in chambers, speaking at podiums. But the story is the same. So when you hear the phrase today, the pot calling the kettle black, remember that it carries with it not just the smoke of history, but also the mirror it holds up to our present. You see, some phrases fade with time, but in Kenya, it seems this one never will. That's my take tonight.
Let's give Chapter 6 of the Constitution on Leadership and Integrity another try. It was written with such optimism, with the hope that our leaders would treat public office as a sacred trust. But if you look at the circus in Kenya today, you'd be forgiven for thinking Chapter 6 was just a bedtime story, inspiring to read, but never meant to be lived. The president now says MPs and senators are demanding bribes to pass legislation and to let impeached governors escape justice. That's a bold accusation. But coming from the executive, it sounds like the pot calling the kettle black. This administration has hardly been free of corruption whispers. And with the broad-based arrangement in Parliament, where the opposition was swallowed whole, legislators have largely been reduced to rubber stamping whatever the executive wants. Until now, when the marriage suddenly looks shaky. But while the executive and legislature point fingers at each other, ordinary Kenyans, the very people who elected them, are watching with growing anger. We lined up at the polling stations because of the promises: better leadership, clean governance, dignity in public service. What we got instead is political theatre. And not even the good theatre, the kind where the actors forget their lines, the set collapses, and the audience feels scammed. Chapter 6 is crystal clear. Article 73 says, and I quote, "Authority assigned to a state officer is a public trust, to be exercised in a manner that demonstrates respect for the people, brings honor to the nation and dignity to the office, and promotes public confidence in the integrity of the office. It vests in the state officer the responsibility to serve the people rather than the people to rule them." rather than the power to rule them. End of quote. Public trust, service to the people, not power to rule. Yet look around. Do you see respect, honor, dignity? Or do you see leaders cashing in on the very power they swore would be a responsibility? Kenyans are not blind. We can see the betrayal. We can see the hypocrisy. We can see the promises turned to dust. And yes, we can feel the sting of a constitution that looks noble on paper, but ignored in practice. So as MPs and senators clash with the executive, here's the truth. Kenyans aren't cheering either side. Because for us, it doesn't matter who wins the shouting match. The economy still hurts. Taxes still bite. Jobs are still scarce. Integrity should not be negotiable. It should be the bare minimum. Our leaders must decide, will they continue to treat public office as a cash cow, or will they finally respect the constitution they sworn? Because one thing is clear. The Kenyan electorate is running out of patience. Dear leaders, stop treating Chapter 6 as a sideline irrelevance. Kenyans are not paying taxes to watch you act in a bad play. Kenyans are done clapping for bad actors. And that is my memo.
Wetangula has chosen to drag the Speaker's chair down the trenches of partisan politics. In recent weeks, Wetangula has lowered the dignity of the office, dancing and making merry with MPs at endless empowerment parties, openly campaigning for President William Ruto's re-election. No, Mr. Speaker, you are out of order. Your demeanor must rise above petty politics. Instead, your decisions from that high chair are increasingly tainted, partisan and questionable. In Parliament today, Wetangula presides, but he no longer leads. Papa Waroma, there is a reason why you move with a motorcade. The reason roads are cleared for you. Your role is not to lord over MPs, but to guide them. But because you drink, dine, and dance with your charges, you cannot command them. You cannot discipline them. You cannot be the perfect prefect as you are supposed to be and as desired by our Constitution. And now the most damning part. By your own admission, you are presiding over a house stripped of integrity.
I have received some letters about members that I would have presented to the agencies on different things. Sometimes I call you, I talk to you, and you correct your ways. Let's also uphold our integrity.
On whose authority, Mr. Speaker, did you decide to become the judge and the jury? Who gave you the mandate to bury evidence of corruption with nothing more than a pep talk to suspected MPs?
In my community, we say there's no little stream that does not have a snake. Every stream has its snake. And like Parliament, we probably also have our snake.
Mr. Wetangula, who made you the snake charmer? Who told you it was your role to decide which snakes bite and which one slithers away? By choosing to look the other way, you have admitted to shielding corruption. In that moment, you stripped the Speaker's office of its moral authority. A polite reminder, Mr. Speaker, in politics, silence in the face of graft is not neutrality, it is partnership. The Speaker is not just another MP, he is the referee. And what do we call a referee who sees fouls, hears the bribes, but keeps the whistles in his pocket? You are not neutral, not fair, not fit. Let's remind you of one fact, Mr. Speaker. You are not just any politician. You are the third in command. If the president and the deputy are absent, you stand in line to be the head of state. Well, Wetangula may not be fit to be the president, but the Speaker of the National Assembly must be fit to be the president. That is what the Constitution demands.
We cannot be saying Ruto must go, then think of Gachagua to become president. You know, it's like you say you don't want to suffer from cholera, you prefer typhoid.
To those who believe politics doesn't affect them, I hope today has taught you how politics affect you directly.
Ruto simpigi kura. Wamenajisi nchi bila kutumia hata kondom.
This is Selector Dede.
Wanadhani ya si bongo lala, ikikupita we bongo lala, na walosema jana iwezi fika leo, tuko ground tunasoza. Hatujikuku mewaka sana, na mabisto na chafua raga, na walosema jana iwezi fika leo, tuko ground tunasoza. Hakuna boka, peleke shuleni watasoma, madakitari wamegoma, hapa sani Yesu atatuponya. Wambie punde imechoka sana, farasi bado ijapatikana, ni mandai wanagonya na mali wanaponda, unakonda wananona. Mandamano, 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 amise mandamano, 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 mandamano.
Jam down shuffle.